And we continue at 106 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wags at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, sometimes when Governor Gavin Newsom is talking about how he's spending the state's money, he sounds like a creepy pimp.
Supporting teachers. 2.9 billion reasons I can lay claim to additional supports for professional development.
Did he have a walking stick when he said that?
Supporting teachers. 2.9 billion reasons I can lay claim.
You better pay up. He'll cut you.
It reminds me of if you ever knew anybody that liked to buy things that are not necessarily legal on Craigslist back in the day. They would always advertise that it would only cost you about 400 reasons.
There's a certain type of verbiage that people use when you can tell they're sleazeball salesmen. You ever gone to a car lot and they say, come over here, take a look at this sweet action?
Supporting teachers. 2.9 billion reasons I can lay claim.
He's such an a-hole.
I don't know why we're so damn sheepish.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It's our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a professor of political science emeritus at California State University at Fullerton. Professor Barbara Stone, welcome.
Good afternoon, John.
Now, as a longtime L.A. Dodgers season ticket holder, I assume you'll be at the game this Sunday cheering on the fake doctor?
Not only does my family own some Dodger tickets, they're actually quite good Dodger tickets. Although we should be careful here because they are right behind heavy-duty Democrats, so that gets exciting. But no, I will not be there. My grandsons will, and I will be there. But they're from out of the area, so I'll have to tell them about the wonderful person they're about to see.
Do you think she can make it from the pitcher's mound to home plate?
No. Not even if she pitches underhand, which is, I assume if she has a little more than the brains, I assume she will do that. That's certainly what I would do. Or just roll it along the ground.
Over the weekend, Congressman Kevin Kiley announced that he would be proposing legislation to make it illegal to do what she did the last time the mask mandates were being debated in L.A. County, where she went to Congressman Adam Schiff's office to put her in touch with people at the highest levels of Twitter to get yours truly kicked off because I was referring to her as a fake doctor, and she said that undermined her credibility, and due to that, I should be removed from Twitter. What do you make of that legislation or proposed legislation? And what do you think she's thinking about all of this as she's reading the same things you and I are?
Well, of course, she might not be, you know. I think she sees herself as fairly insulated, though I do not know that. I don't know the woman, and she's off doing other things at this point. Congressman Kiley's legislation is interesting. And John, with all due respect, trying to keep you off Twitter, she did not succeed. It was actually far worse that she was getting newspapers to kill off op-ed pieces by doctors who were saying she didn't know what she was talking about. The people who are suing her are a mother's group who, to the extent I understand it, were taking her, I don't know if they were tweets or whatever it was, and her statements, to which she would not take responses, putting them out on the Internet and inviting people to comment, which normally they would have been on hers. And son of a gun, she got them kicked off because they might make her look bad. That wasn't hurting her, undermining her credibility. That was just, don't anyone say anything to make me look bad. And that's disgraceful. The only more disgraceful thing is that Adam Schiff's office was facilitating it all.
And, of course, with him as a candidate for the U.S. Senate and right now finishing in the top 2 in every poll I've seen, there are a lot of people who have a lot of interest in making sure that negative attention goes his way.
Actually, it won't happen, but I would love to see Kevin Kiley go to his colleague Katie Porter. Hey, Katie, what do you think of this?
She could be a co-sponsor.
Yeah, something like that. And as long as you were putting it, you're going after Adam. Barbara Ferrer is just kind of irrelevant here. Plus, Katie Porter's not from L.A. County. That could be pretty fun.
All right, let's shift gears here and talk about these smash and grabs. We had one at the Americana in Glendale. We had another one in Canoga Park at the Topanga Mall. In each instance, it looks like organized crime was behind these crimes, behind these thefts, and in each case, over $300,000 worth of merchandise was stolen. Much of it, presumably, will be sold online, and the people who are buying it, I'm sure, will have no idea that they're buying stolen merchandise. When you see the reaction to these crimes from elected officials, whether you're talking about Mayor Karen Bass, whether you're talking about the district attorney, George Gascon, politicians who were not successful, Rick Caruso, Gavin Newsom, whoever, they all use the same word. They don't say we need to catch these thugs and throw them in prison. They don't say we want jail time. They don't say we want law and order. They're using a new buzzword, and the buzzword is accountability. Because from their perspective, if you believe in no bail, accountability is arresting them, immediately releasing them, and if and when they go before a judge and a jury, you give them some sort of court-ordered group therapy because you can't give these poor little darlings a record, and you can't make them disclose that they're a felon when they go for a job application. So you give them some BS punishment that doesn't modify or impact their behavior at all, and they're not incarcerated, so they're available to go out and hit the next mall. Why is it, do you think, they all use the same word, accountability? Is this coming from some Democratic guru?
That I don't know, but I think you're correct that this is the terminology of the day because they don't want to sound like they're going to be mean to these poor people who were the subjects of systemic racism and had no choice, and this is how they're going to make a living. So I think you're right that that's just what they're using. But I have two general reactions to this. I don't care what they say. When I see them beef up their police departments, Karen Bass claims she's going to, we'll see. When they direct the police chief, why are you not getting these gangs? Then I might listen to them. Because, and here you need someone more expert than I am, John, because I know around the edges on criminal law, but I don't really know it. My understanding is what I think is going on. And by the way, there was just another one after the Canoga Park one, I think in East L.A. of a big Nike store. Until you go, I believe that there is an exception in the law when they can prove organized effort. That it's not just did this person steal something worth this or that or the other, but where you have organized gangs, I believe there are provisions even in our stupid laws that you can go in and you can pound these people if you want them. And so far I see absolutely no particular reason to think that they want them. And let's put it this way. You also then talked about the other end of this. And, yeah, somebody buying a scarf on eBay is going to have no idea. You know who's going to have some idea of what's going on are those sites. Because these guys aren't coming in with, oh, here's one scarf, here's two. They're coming in with volumes of goods. And you could trace it if you wanted to. I'm no computer expert or anything, but you can trace it and know that, hey, these people look suspicious, just like we do on Hunter Biden's suspicious monetary transactions. So they could do this if they meant it. And maybe if the feds, if nobody else, would go look at some stuff like this instead of chasing their political enemies, that would help. But anyhow, I guess after all that ranting and raving, which said virtually nothing, until the people of that city and the people of this county decide they're not voting for these idiots, that they will, somebody gasp, maybe even vote for Republicans, then I don't want to hear it, because you're causing this. And those idiots like the lovely new one on the LA City Council who doesn't know the words of Pledge of Allegiance, that's what they're voting for. What do you expect to get? Anyhow, excuse me.
How paralyzed are they with these issues because of the subject of race? And I say that because you mentioned the big Silicon Valley firms. Let's take eBay, for example. You look at the people who work at eBay. These are people who live and work in Northern California. Many of them were educated in Northern California. We know how Northern California votes. We know how college-educated people in Northern California vote. You're talking about some of the most left-wing people in the state of California. If all of a sudden you come up with some sort of algorithm, let's take the scarf example, because these are department stores that are getting hit, and you say, okay, if all of a sudden you're selling 300 scarves and you're putting them online in one day, that's going to trigger some kind of investigation to look to see if you look suspicious and you look like someone who stole the scarves. If they start doing that, and if the people who are responsible for these smash and grabs in the malls are disproportionately black, that means what you're going to do is you're going to start suspending the accounts that are going to go disproportionately black and say your account is suspicious and therefore we're not going to let you sell the scarves until we determine that these aren't stolen merchandise. If you do that, the accusations of racism are going to fly, and you're going to find attorneys who are going to represent these people, and Silicon Valley is going to attract all kinds of attention they don't want.
Which is to the point that on their own, they're not going to do this. I mean, to think that in the name of good something that they will is just to be foolish. I think you just laid it out. That means law enforcement has to come after them. Now, law enforcement in the state, who do we mean? Well, do you think Rob Bonta is going to do it?
No way.
Maybe not. And by the way, that's probably where it should be because, well, it's probably where it should be. Do you think, hey, I know, and all the ones we've been talking about are in L.A. County, maybe somewhere between the sheriff and George Gascon, huh? Well, maybe not. As I say, you keep electing these people, and they're the ones who should be doing it, and they're the ones, as you just pointed out, who are completely subject to the, oh my goodness, the race stuff. And in fact, some of them will actually say that because of systemic racism, these poor people have to make a living, and don't worry, the stores have insurance. That's one of the things they go through. That it's going to keep going. And people like us, well, what can you do? I'm not leaving California. My family's here. But I do live in the city of Whittier, and while many things happened and don't happen, if I call the cops come. That's a good beginning.
You mentioned the insurance claims. This is an important issue because right now in California, State Farm and Allstate are no longer selling new homeowners insurance policies if you aren't already grandfathered in. We have seen some companies who are getting out of the retail game altogether in the state of California because the crime rate is just too high. We're hearing reports, including from KGO Television in San Francisco, that the insurance companies are now flying drones over homes, and they're coming up with BS excuses to kick people off of their policies. They say, oh, your roof is damaged, we're kicking you off. In some cases, the roofs were just replaced not that long ago. You have too much junk in your backyard. Well, I'm an auto mechanic, and that's where I work. It's not junk. That is where I make my living. We don't care. We're kicking you off your policy. At a certain point, if we don't do something about the fires, which the home will start half of, and faulty equipment from PG&E and Southern California Edison, they start a huge chunk of the fires as well. and we don't do anything about the crime, and the crime gets worse, and the dollar amount of the thefts gets jacked up to levels at which we're seeing now happen pretty regularly, we're going to become uninsurable as a state, not only for homeowners, but for retail companies as well. That's going to be a real problem, and it doesn't seem like anyone seems to care about it right now.
Well, I can tell you where to start, and not just start, probably finish. It's with the State Department of Insurance, headed by that outstanding elected insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara. And John, insurance companies are, if you want to be mean, out to make a dollar, but they have shareholders. If they're going to pay out money, they have to be bringing in money. And risk assessment is a huge part of what they do. On the whole, there's some things that you just can't charge enough for the risk that comes with it. But on the whole, if you let them charge enough so that out of the pool of money, they have the wherewithal to make some profit and still pay out, they'll do it. In California, we very specifically won't let them do that. I think now you need someone, once again, who's an expert, not me. But I believe it's true that that we're the only state in the nation who insists that risk be figured on the basis of looking backwards, and backwards 10 years or more. And that here's the pattern, and you can't charge any more than would have covered what has happened in the last 10 years. As I say, it's at least 10 years, maybe it's more. The problem with that is as we've entered new eras, let's start with your homeless. Who's starting the fires? Not all of them, just most of them. And other conditions, drought certainly has played in, miles and miles of electric line, all those things. The risk has gone up. And if you want insurance companies to insure us, then they need to charge to allow for the increased risk. And the department won't let them. So they're going, okay, brothers and sisters, you do the insuring. By the way, the state will do it. I have never looked at a policy. I gather they're absolute excrement.
Usually, when there's some crisis, there's some big news event that's going on, and it's in the wheelhouse of a particular politician. There's gun violence, and Dianne Feinstein is not 90 years old. She's the one that ends up on Meet the Press because she's the one that always carries the gun legislation in Washington, D.C. There's something that has to do with, I don't know, water back in the old days. Ken Maddy was the one that would talk to the papers because he was the one in the state legislature who knew all about water. The insurance issue is something that's in every newspaper in the state. Certainly every homeowner is paying attention to it. People are very worried about the subject. When we call Ricardo Lara's office and we ask him to come on the program and talk about it, they won't return our calls. And it's not like he has an obligation to come on this show. He can pick and choose which ones he does. But I talk to people in local television. He won't go on their shows. I talk to people in print. I had Carla Marinucci on last week. He won't talk to her. He's not talking to anyone about what's going on right now with these companies pulling out of the California market. And he put out a statement on the internet saying there's nothing he can do about it. This is not typically how politicians behave. He's hiding from us when he should be the one who's, at a minimum, explaining why this is all happening, but he's got his head in the sand.
No, he doesn't. Oh no, honey, he doesn't have his head in the sand. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows we have an insurance commissioner who could do something about this. And as long as it's not his head in the sand, he wants your head in the sand. As long as you don't know he's there, there won't be any pressure on him. There won't be any public anything on him. And so he can just continue doing what he's doing. By the way, you should watch carefully because I've always understood, I haven't done the research myself, that he takes money from from insurance companies. And I'm sure some are still able to operate because they've bought access. But the bottom line is anonymity is his strength right now. Now, you would say in one way, why would he care? Because I think he's termed out. I think he can't run again statewide. That being said, a person like this has to run again for something. And therefore, you don't really want people going after him. And when he runs for something else and they go, oh, look what you caused, he'll go, no, I protected you from the evil insurance companies that wanted to charge you more. That's what's going on.
The rumor is he's going to run for lieutenant governor.
Sounds right. And by the way, boy, you can do whatever what we just talked about with him and insurance. You go look at the legislation he actually got through the Senate on a state health insurance plan. Oh my God, that would be enough to make me leave the state because I'm old and I can't have what they would have done. So the guy is both crooked and a danger. But from his point of view, as long as no one pays attention to him, and by the way, if he runs for lieutenant governor, no one knows who's in that office either. And so, anyway, excuse me.
Professor Barbara Stone, Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton. Thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Okay, John, real good.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to keep the party going at 3:01, you can continue to allow you and me to entertain them.
That's right. You go to KBC.com, click on podcast, then go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, download all the episodes. You can search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube, hit the playlist there. There are a bunch of ways to listen. You can listen to it over and over and over and over again till you've had enough.
Enough already.
All right, coming up next, some employees in the city of San Francisco are being told to work from home. And this time, it has nothing to do with COVID or fake doctors.
Yeah.
Some employees in the city and county of San Francisco are being told to work from home. But Randy, this time, it doesn't have anything to do with COVID-19.
No, employees who work at a federal building in San Francisco have been instructed to work remotely because their employees have become very afraid of the open-air drug scene in front of the federal building.
Everyone in front of that Pelosi building looks like a filthy drug addict who would attack Pelosi's husband.
KGO has the investigative story, which includes my favorite part, interviewing the drug addicts themselves.
The moment we arrived on 7th Street and Mission, we found a group gathered in front of the federal building.
Do you realize you're in front of a federal building and you're doing drugs? They don't care, you say.
You tell us to come here and do them.
They said that you can come and do it?
Yeah, they told him, come to the federal building, do all the heroin you want.
Imagine if you get called for jury duty, or you have some administrative government paperwork you've got to do. You lost your passport or something, and you need to go down there, and this is the gauntlet that you have to walk through.
Care, you say.
You tell us to come here and do them.
They said that you can come and do it?
You know, I'm sure the voices that you hear when you do that much meth did tell you, go to the federal building.
Mm-hmm.
Another man showed us his paraphernalia, which included aluminum foil and a straw typically used to smoke fentanyl.
He came prepared.
It's National Geographic here at KGO.
Another man showed us his paraphernalia, which included aluminum foil and a straw typically used to smoke fentanyl.
Can you explain what this is?
What's that?
That.
This is fentanyl is picking up off the ground.
He identified that quickly.
He gave his 2 unused needles to another man.
Oh, how friendly.
Sharing is caring.
So are you using fentanyl or heroin here?
No, I shoot fentanyl and crystal together.
He's got a cocktail.
And it sounds like he's eating chips while he's doing it.
So are you using fentanyl or heroin here?
No, I shoot fentanyl and crystal together.
Now, I know that sounds like a chip, but if you've seen anyone that's done meth for a very long time, that is this man's teeth crumbling before your very eyes.
Might need some dentures now.
That blasé behavior no longer
Blasé. Now, there's some editorializing, and I'm here for it.
That blasé behavior no longer surprises the security at the federal building. Guards occasionally come out to ask them to move. One guard told me off camera that's all they can do. This is a daily.
It's a federal building.
And they can't remove illegal activity from the steps of the federal building.
This is a daily occurrence.
Yes, every day.
So much so that the Chronicle reported that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which has a regional office here, has told its employees to work from home.
Hey, John, who's their boss?
I believe that's Javier Baccaria.
For Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Baccaria.
A Californian, the former attorney general, who is telling his employees work from home because the open-air drug scene in San Francisco is that scary.
And before he became Secretary of Health and Human Services, he was California's Attorney General and ran California's Department of Justice, and in theory was responsible for making sure that we were safe.
In theory.
In light of the conditions at the federal building, Supervisor Matt Dorsey lives nearby.
We're not solving anything if we don't solve police staffing.
Dorsey says he knows of another situation involving the daycare center used by federal employees here.
They were sharing...
I'm not taking my kids.
Oh, God, could you imagine?
They were sharing with me...
No FBI daycare for you.
They were sharing with me that they are doing everything they can to hire people to do childcare work. And among 18 or 19 applications, a large majority of them decided that they had no interest in working here once they found out what the location was.
Would you?
The federal government spent $3 million making improvements to the outside of the building, which included a galvanized steel fence to keep the plaza free of drug users and the unhoused. But it's clear to anyone that the benches outside provide people with a chance to gather and stay.
Mind you, this is something they claim isn't happening. When Gavin Newsom gets confronted about all of this, he says California's safe and it's Fox News folly.
Jane, who is unhoused, says they are now being asked to move more frequently.
Not even the library over here allows it. So far, this was the only...
Do you think before she became a meth head, she ever entered a library?
Absolutely not.
Not even the library over here allows it. So far, this was the only spot that was safe for everybody.
When they gather at one place, I think the police would go there and then they move to another spot.
You don't even need men on the street. There's so many people lying on the street, they just move the microphone from person to person.
This is the easiest man on the street interview you could possibly conduct as a reporter.
That's how it is.
Richie Wynn, also a local resident, has been using social media to document his experiences.
Oh, we know that guy.
When I used to travel around the country and people would ask me where I was from, I'd say San Francisco, and they'd be like, they would used to say that, oh, it's such a beautiful city. Now when I travel and I tell people where I live, and I say, hey, I'm from San Francisco, they ask me, are you okay?
Can we help get you out of there?
Are you okay? Like, it's wild out there, isn't it? We are definitely seeing a different version of San Francisco in this area.
There you go, Johnny.
Well, it's not because of a natural disaster. It's not because of an act of God. San Francisco is in the state it's in right now because the government refuses to do its job. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Oh, here is a great one from Steven. Now, Steven used to be a big baseball fan, but kind of quit being a Dodger fan a few years ago. However, on hearing who is throwing out the first pitch this Sunday, Steven says it incited him to purchase a ticket and sit at the top of the stadium to boo very loudly in an attempt to get others to do the same. Barbara Ferrer ruined my retirement.
Barbara Ferrer ruined all of our lives.
Next slide.
Highly encourage anybody that has any interest in going to this Sunday's Dodger game, go early, get there before 12:40, and when you see Barbara Ferrer throwing the first pitch, well, go ahead and blast away.
I have tickets to the Angel game on Sunday, so I'll be in Anaheim. However, if I didn't have tickets to the Angel game, I think I might buy tickets to the Dodger game and show up just to boo her.
No, thank you.
If you decide to boo her this Sunday, please film it and please send us the video at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com.